So today I want to talk to you about travel apps because I use them a lot when I travel around Vietnam, and I thought I might tell you about my 4 favourites so that it may help you in your trip. So firstly, just as a given, would be Google Maps. Now, the handy part about Google Maps when you're in a strange place in particular is just to give you some idea of how far one place is from the other. But in very big cities, very congested cities like Saigon in particular, it's really handy because you might look at it and you might say, oh, it's only 2 kilometres or it's only 3 kilometres or 5 kilometres. But when you actually look where it is, you might realise if you type in the directions, etc., it's going to take you quite a bit longer because there's one-way streets and it's just not a direct access. So really handy when you're trying to plan out your day and plan out your time, and certainly when you're travelling from one city to the other. Be mindful that while the distance might say 100 kilometres or 50 kilometres, which doesn't sound like a lot, sometimes with traffic and sometimes with the roadworthiness and what they are allowed to travel at, what speed they're allowed to travel at, you may find that from going from A to B, it costs you in time a lot more than you thought. So, Google Maps, number 1. Number 2, the most used app I use is the Grab app. Now, just as to make sure everyone understands, this isn't an advert for Grab or anything like that. It's not paid for or anything like that. I've got an aeroplane going overhead. How funny is that? Anyway, the Grab app is definitely my go-to for a Grab bike or a Grab car. Now, I don't know whether I've shared with everybody, but I do have a preference over the taxi option. I just have this feeling that if the person owns their bike or owns their car, they do tend to be, as a driver, they take more care. And the cars that you get are very good quality, or certainly in my experience they have been. And you get a really good experience with the app from a safety aspect, in the sense that you can immediately verify that they have your name, they have your destination clearly identified on their app, so you can match them when you get into the car or you get onto the bike. You know already up front what your fee is going to be, so that kind of gets rid of any anxiety to do with being ripped off or taking around the wrong way, because it's already there for you. And then you have options of how you pay. So you can pay by credit card or you can pay by cash. Now, I choose to pay by cash. I do offer a small tip if the ride is good. And I don't know whether or not that gets me good reviews or that gets me quicker pickups in the future. Some people say it does. I don't know. I can't put my hand on heart and say that's true. But certainly from my experience, in most places in Vietnam, and I understand now from my last trip that it's back in Hoi An as well. So, where you can, Grab is really, really handy to get around. And then the other number 3 app that I use, just to make sure I'm paying what I want to pay for in my own currency. So it's more for when you go shopping and you want to buy something that's rather expensive. And when you see tags or kind of amounts come up that are in the millions, that might not be that much in our own currency, depending on what currency we're working with. But it's just handy to know. So I always use the Exi app. Now, the Exi app isn't an absolute 100%. There is going to be that variation, but it's going to give you, probably a margin of, 5% close to, what you would be paying and what the equal amount is dong to your currency. So it's my number 3, and as I said, I don't use it every day because I kind of know how much things cost in my currency most of the time. But when it starts to get into expensive things, I might do a double check using Etsy. So number 4 is a little bit left field. And once again, I preface this by saying this isn't a paid for advert. This is just, I knew of this app. I got introduced to this app through actually one of my podcast guests. And it's a food app. And it's a brilliant app in the sense that it gives you recipes. It gives you the regions where the recipes come from. And it gives you obviously all the details so that you could make that recipe yourself at home if you wanted to. It's also got some other great stuff with phrases and a little bit of language stuff in it, which I haven't used that much. But I want to tell you how I use the food one. So I'm standing in Hanoi one day, and I'm standing in front of a board. So they've got all the pictures and they've got, the names of the Vietnamese items. And I couldn't remember this particular recipe or what was in it. So I think it was bun bo actually. And it's a noodle dish. It's a noodle kind of soup dish, but I didn't know what else was in it. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't really want to go and ask it and, look like a total dip. And I thought, the food app. So I go to the food app, I type the name in of the item. Sure enough, the picture comes up and then a full description of what items are in it and then, how to make it. So I was almost, measuring that picture to the picture on the app, and I could make a smart decision. I can make a wise decision. So if you are curious about food in Vietnam, and you should try as many different things from north to south because there is quite a variance. And you want to do it with a little bit of wisdom because you may not like certain things, or your kids may not like certain things, or you might be allergic to certain things. This is a really great app. So this is the Vietnam Food Safari app. I'm going to put the list of my 4 below, so you'll be able to get them very easily. And please feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. But they're my 4 favourite travel apps for Vietnam. Happy travelling.